Hello YouTubers, today's video is we're going to be making some homemade chicken noodle soup.
Today I'm going to be making some homemade chicken noodle soup. Of course I'm going to be using no yolk egg noodles, extra broad. I've got celery, cut onions, I got baby carrots that I've cut in half, some garlic. I've got 10 chicken thighs. I don't know if I'll be using them all or not. I'm at least going to be putting them in, and I'll probably have at least 4, maybe 5 of the chicken thighs that I'll put back in after I have them cooked. I've got a couple of containers of chicken broth. Got a whole stick of butter, some chives. Back here I've got some poultry seasoning, garlic powder, bay leaves, onion powder, thyme and rosemary. So what I've done is I've already turned on my pot, my good stock pot there, and letting that warm up. So the first thing I'll do is I'm going to add my stick of butter in it. That's going to get things kind of warming up, and we'll let that melt. I hope you'll excuse the fact that I don't have any gloves on right now, but that's basically I can't find my darn things, and I'm only making this soup for myself today, so we're not going to worry about any contamination going on. Otherwise, if I was going to be making it where somebody else would be eating it, then I would have gloves on. I'm just going to let that melt there, and once that gets down, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add in my onions and then my celery, carrots, and once that starts going, I'll go ahead and I'm going to add my garlic. I don't want to burn the garlic, so that's going to go in last. So we'll just kind of let that melt for a little bit. Now I've got this set at medium heat. My butter's getting kind of brown. It's not burning, it's basically just caramelizing. So it's going to help bring out the flavors. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add my onions to it. I'll mix that up there a little bit. Let them start to get translucent. And then what I'll do is I'll start adding in the other things to it. We're going to get it to a nice translucent color. Help bring out the flavors and sweat them a little bit. When you're just melting that butter, you want to keep that stirred up so it doesn't burn. You know, I'm trying to keep it from bubbling a little bit. My recommendation when it comes to a pot, don't go skippy at it. If you think you got one where it might not hold everything, go big. It can't hurt to have a little bit too big of a pot. I'd rather do that than have a small one. It's starting to cook up pretty good. Now I'm going to add my celery to it. Now, the recipe I originally saw, it called for 3 stalks. I went with 6, almost 7. And the reason that I want it a full body. I want a lot on the spoon. And once these get cooking, you'll get a lot of good flavor out of the celery. The next thing I'm going to add to it is going to be my carrots. And what I did with the carrots is I picked up a package of little baby carrots rather than to cut them all up and just to make them bite-sized. I got the baby carrots, ripped them off. I think all I had to do was cut them in half. They're still going to have substance and something to help fill the spoon, but yet they won't be so big where you can't eat them or get a full bite. Now the next thing I'll do is I'll put my garlic on there. Garlic I'm putting on top because with the garlic, if you put it on the bottom or put it on first, what's going to happen is it's going to burn. And we don't want that to happen because when you've got garlic that's burnt, what it does is it gives it a bitter taste. So I wanted to soak all that garlic flavor into it. I did about 3-4 cloves. Actually the recipe called for 3 and I went ahead and I did 4. Get that little piece of skin off there. But I'm a big believer. I love garlic. And so a little extra flavor, as far as I'm concerned, couldn't hurt. And once we get that going a little bit, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put in some broth. And I'm going to do a full 32 ounces, or about a quart. If I feel I need more, I've got the other one sitting right here. I'll let this simmer for a few minutes before I put it in. Okay, it's been in there a few minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pour my broth in. I'll put a little bit of it in here first. And then, excuse my fingers, I'm going to put those chicken thighs. Now these are boneless and they're skinless. And kind of put them down here towards the bottom. I think what I'm going to do, yeah, I'll put them all in there because I want to get that flavor in these chicken thighs. I may not use them all when I take them out when they're done, but at least they'll be cooked, which I like to do quite often. Is I'll cook them up and then freeze them and use them for something else. And then I'll go ahead and I'll add my broth to it here. And on this, I'm not using anything special. Some people say to use low sodium. This is just standard chicken broth. And by looking at it, I think I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add the second container. I want to make a good hearty pot of soup. And with all the ingredients I have, there'll be plenty of flavor with both those 32 ounces in there. I'm going to hold off on the yolk or on the my noodles because that's the last thing I'm going to be putting in. So we're just going to kind of mix this up a little bit and let her cook. And we'll get back to it shortly. Now, mixing this up a little bit. And I'm going to throw in or add a little bit of poultry seasoning. This happens to be Zender's from Frankenmuth, Michigan. I've got a little garlic powder because you know you can't have too much garlic powder or garlic in it. I'm going to add a little bit of onion powder. Onion's another staple. Maybe it's the Cajun in me. I'm going to throw some thyme in it. Usually you'd use fresh thyme, and I think that basically this is all I have. Just like anybody else that would be cooking it for the first time, they might not think of it. I'm going to add just a little bit of rosemary to it. And I'm going to throw a couple of bay leaves in here. And we're going to let her boil there, or let her simmer. We'll put a cover on it. And then, once it gets done simmering, or when it starts simmering, I'm going to go back, I'm going to check the temperature on the chicken thighs. And once they get up to about 165 degrees to 170, I'll pull them out and then break up what I want to break up. I think it's better to have it pulled than cut. And so I'll shred it, put it back in there. The rest of it I'm going to put away and use that for something else. So we'll let that simmer for a little while. Okay, it's been simmering for a little while now. I've got it set at medium. And we'll do a quick test on chicken thighs. So I'll pull one out here and do a little test. And looks like these are well over, I don't know if you can see that or not, these are over 200 degrees. That's more than enough. So I'm going to pull these out and set them on a paper towel to let them drain a little bit. Okay, I don't need to check anymore. Here's 3. 4, 5, 6, 7, 'Put the veggies back in there. Here's 8. There's 9. Probably have one more in there besides the 10th because one kind of broke off. Maybe we got it all. Let's check through here a little bit. Now I've added in some celery seed. Just for some added flavor. And I'm letting her simmer there. I'm going to get a spoon real quick and we'll give it a little taste test. Okay, let's check her out here a little bit. I think the carrots are still a little bit on the tough side yet. Oh yeah, that's tasting pretty good. I'm going to add just a little bit more of this poultry flavoring. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tear up some of these thighs. I'm going to let it cool first a little bit, and then I'll add them in. Okay, we let the thighs kind of thaw down or cool off a little bit so I can tear them apart. It's better, I feel, if you tear it apart because it gives you much better texture, and it just looks a lot better. I think the flavor comes out much better if you have it torn or pulled, like they do on pulled pork, rather than sliced. So I've did about 7 of them here, and thighs, by the way, are much more flavorful. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to put in, like I said, about 7 of these because I like a lot of stock in my soup. It's always rather annoying when you just don't have enough chicken in your chicken noodle soup. So this is really chicken noodle soup, not chicken flavored vegetable soup. So anyway, we've got that all set. And we're going to let her simmer there for a little while longer. When she gets pretty good and hot and mixed and the vegetables feel like they're tender, then I'm going to go ahead and add the noodles, because you don't want to put the noodles in too early. You want to make sure that when you do put them in, they have a chance to cook but not overcook. And basically you don't want them totally cooked when you take them out, or when you put them, when you serve it, because that broth will still heat them up somewhat. So we're just going to let her sit there, and like I said, I've got it at medium, and we're going to let her sit there, and I'm going to say probably at least another 30 minutes or so. Now, soup's been in there simmering now for at least another half hour, 45 minutes. So I have added a little bit of salt to it and some chives, just for flavoring. When I did test it in between videoing, or in between filming, that I felt it needed just a little bit of salt. Of course, that's to your liking. I checked the carrots, and those are nice and tender. Of course, the celery is too as well. I'll give this another chance. And that is just about right. So I'm just going to let it simmer for a little while longer, and then what I'll do is I'll add some noodles to it and have myself a bowl. We'll see how she works out. Okay, our soup has been simmering there for a little while, and we're going to go ahead and add our noodles. First thing I'll do, take a little taste test on it, see how it's doing. Yep, tastes pretty good. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add the noodles in. Put those in, mix them in there real good. And then we're going to let them sit there and bring them to a boil. And right now I've got it right around on a medium heat. And we're going to bring it to a boil and let it simmer for about 9 minutes. And see how it comes out. It should be pretty good. It says 6 to 9 minutes. So I'm going to wait until this kind of gets up to a boil. Kind of mix it up real good. It says to add salt to flavor if you like. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a little bit more of this poultry seasoning in this. I like this real well. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a touch more salt. We don't want it too salty. We'll give it a little bit more here. Mix that in. Chicken's real nice and tender. And about this time I'm going to add a little bit of chives. Just to punch up the flavor. I actually had to add another quart of soup into it, or the broth, because there was so many chicken thighs in there, it just kind of soaked it all right up. That's going to be pretty good. So we'll let that come to a boil. I'm going to set the timer to 9 minutes. And then we're just going to let her simmer there for a while. Starting to come up. Okay, and then we're going to come back in about 9 minutes or so. Okay, it's been about 9 minutes. Looks like the noodles are all nice and tender, or where they should be. We'll give this a shut off here and give it a little taste. Very good. We have a noodle here, see how that is. Hold it, there we go. Okay, got a little carrot, noodle. Very good. Let's serve up a bowl. Don't have any ground pepper. Actually, the batteries are dead, so I'm going to add just a little bit of pepper on it. And let's see what we have here. That is very good. I think we've got a real good batch. I hope you enjoyed watching this process of how I make my homemade chicken noodle soup. And if you like this video, please hit the thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And most of all, thanks for watching.